Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Psalm 90:12. Night fell over the city like a silent cloak. Lights were going out one by one as the clock struck midnight. The camera slowly approaches an illuminated office building. On the top floor, behind a window, a man remains awake. His name was Arturo. He was 58 years old and considered a successful man. Full bank accounts, properties, luxury cars, a renowned firm. But that night, sitting in front of a table full of contracts, Arturo felt something strange, a deep anguish, a restlessness he couldn't name. Despite his achievements, time seemed to slip through his fingers like fine sand. The silence was interrupted by an unexpected sound, the chime of an antique clock. Arturo looked up, confused. There was no clock in that office. However, the chimes echoed with an unsettling precision. Each stroke vibrated his memories, his decisions, his absences. He looked at his trembling hands. The doctor had warned him that stress was destroying his health. He recommended resting, enjoying life, stopping for a moment. But Arturo then replied, "I'll rest when everything is over." And nothing ever truly ended. The camera focuses on his tired gaze. He slowly opens his computer and, as if searching for a desperate answer, types into the search bar, "How much is an hour of life worth?" The screen goes blank for a few seconds. Then a mysterious message appears, as if someone on the other side had been waiting for that moment. Time cannot be bought. It is honored. If you want to understand it, you must remember what you lost. Arturo shivers. He thought it was a coincidence, a strange advertisement, a virus, but he couldn't look away. He felt those words pierce his soul. The invisible clock chimed again, marking the relentless passage of time. Arturo closed his eyes, and fleeting images began to appear. His son's birthday party he didn't attend, the call he ignored, the promise he forgot. He had dedicated his life to building wealth, but he had lost irreplaceable moments. He slowly stood up. He walked to a forgotten bookshelf in the corner of the office. Among business books and financial magazines, he found an ancient volume his grandmother had given him, Words of Wisdom. He had hardly ever opened it. Arturo held the book as one holds a key. Perhaps, he thought, there was a guide, a direction, a way to recover the lost inner time. As he opened it, a silent reflection crossed his mind. If each day had a word to guide me, if I could wake up with purpose, if there was a daily practice to honor time. The camera slowly pulls away. Arturo remains there, with the book open and the invisible clock marking a rhythm that seems to accelerate. His heart beats strongly. Something is about to change. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Proverbs 1:7. Arturo held the antique book with trembling hands. The cover, worn by the years, seemed to hold a mystery. He opened the first page and found a dedication written in a firm hand. "To you, for when you understand that time is the most sacred treasure." The signature was his grandmother's. Arturo breathed deeply. For years, he had ignored that gift, thinking it was just an old book. Now, after hearing the invisible clock, that dedication seemed like a message destined for that precise moment. The camera follows his steps as he walks to his silent living room. Arturo sits on the sofa, opens the book again, and reads the first underlined verse. Wisdom calls aloud in the street. She raises her voice in the public squares. Proverbs 1:20. Those words echoed in his mind like an echo from the past. It was as if wisdom had been calling him for decades, but Arturo was too busy to listen. He remembered endless meetings, early mornings in front of the computer, ambitious contracts he celebrated as triumphs. However, those achievements now seemed empty. He understood that he had confused success with fulfillment. The invisible clock chimed again. It wasn't marking time, it was marking postponed decisions. Arturo swallowed. He felt that his life had been a constant pursuit of external goals, while his interior crumbled in silence. He stood up. He walked to a large window from which the sleeping city could be seen. Millions of lights off, millions of stories paused. He wondered how many of those people were wasting time chasing things that, in the end, don't matter. The camera focuses on his expression. Arturo reflects, what if every dawn began with a word of wisdom? What if every day was guided with intention? And what if there was a method not to waste days? The idea shook him. By activating daily reflection, time would gain meaning. Each day would be a spiritual investment, not an unconscious expense. The camera slowly approaches his hands, gripping the book as if it were a map. Arturo feels he has discovered a hidden path, not one made of wealth, but of presence. And that path could begin at dawn, with the discipline of reading, meditating, and recording his reflections. His breathing becomes slow, deep. He thinks about the possibility of rebuilding relationships, of repairing absences. He didn't know how, but he sensed that daily wisdom could guide him. He returned to his desk, opened a new notebook, and wrote, Day 1, Awakening with Wisdom. That phrase marked the beginning of something silent and transformative. Arturo understood that every day, by writing an intention and reflecting on a divine word, he would be honoring the time that remained. It would be an intimate, spiritual act, a real change. As he wrote, he thought about other people who might also need to rebuild their inner time. Perhaps they were not alone. Perhaps there were tools to accompany them day by day, in a simple, profound, and practical way, helping them awaken spiritually and live with purpose each day. The camera slowly pulls away. Arturo closes the book, but not the process. Something inside him ignited, a silent decision to start anew. Blessed is the man who finds wisdom, and the man who acquires understanding. Proverbs 3:13. Dawn was slowly breaking. Arthur remained seated in front of the open notebook, as if waiting for invisible instructions. He felt that something inside him had awakened. It wasn't fear nor nostalgia, it was consciousness. Consciousness of lost time, but also of the possibility of renewed time. He looked at the mobile phone clock. Only 20 minutes had passed since he wrote Day 1, but Arthur perceived it as if he had crossed an inner threshold. He had lived for decades without questioning the direction of his life. Now every minute seemed valuable. He stood up, took a deep breath, and began to walk around the house, observing previously insignificant objects. A photo frame with an old photo. Him, his young son, and his wife smiling in a park. Arthur saw in their eyes the emotional distance he had always avoided looking at. He had chosen to earn money instead of earning time with those he loved. The camera shows a close-up of his face. 2 silent tears fall. They were tears of recognition. What has passed cannot be repaired, but what remains can be honored. Arthur opened a drawer where he kept memories. He pulled out a yellowed envelope. Inside were several notes, small clippings, motivational phrases his grandmother used to send him before she died. In one of them he read, "Time is a seed. If you do not sow it with wisdom, it will grow empty." That phrase pierced him. Arthur thought about how many decisions he made on impulse, how many projects he embraced without soul, how many commitments he ignored, thinking there would always be tomorrow. Now he understood that tomorrow is not guaranteed for anyone. He sat on the sofa, closed his eyes, and listened to his breath. He visualized his life as a continuous line of decisions. Some had brought him closer to material prosperity, but many had taken him away from true purpose. At that moment, he understood something crucial. Spiritual and emotional wealth is not built in grand gestures, but in small daily acts. Words, decisions, priorities, presence. He opened the notebook again and wrote, Day 2, I will listen before acting. He felt that each phrase was an intimate promise to himself, a way to exercise wisdom, a daily training of the heart. As he wrote, he imagined a daily routine guided by deep reflections, spiritual discipline, and concrete actions. Not to impress anyone, but to transform his interior. He thought about how many people, like him, live trapped in the frantic pace of time without noticing that their soul is slowly disintegrating. Perhaps, if each day they were guided by wise words, they would awaken. Perhaps, if they had a daily reminder, a written spiritual accompaniment, they could rebuild their decisions, restore bonds, and learn to honor the present time. The camera approaches. Arthur places his hand on the ancient book as if it were a pact. He knows it won't be easy to maintain that discipline, but he also knows that transformation requires constancy. The invisible clock rang again, but this time he felt no fear. It was a call, an invitation to act with purpose. He took a deep breath and in silence made the most important decision: to begin a daily journey to honor time, one day at a time, guided by divine wisdom. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. Ecclesiastes 3:1. Dawn began to paint the city's corners with gold. Arthur looked at the horizon from the window, feeling that the light had a different meaning that morning. It was as if the sky confirmed that every day can be a new opportunity if the heart is willing. The house was silent. Arthur, without knowing why, felt the urge to walk to his study, where he had spent countless nights calculating profits. This time, however, he was not looking for numbers, but for answers. He opened a drawer and took out a small wooden box. Inside, he found old photographs, letters, and forgotten papers that had been trapped in the past. One photo caught his attention, him holding his newborn son. He carefully looked at the baby's small face, then at his own, full of youthful ambition. The invisible clock marked a soft rhythm, as if reminding him that time is a river that does not flow backward. Arthur understood that he had allowed days to pass, without intention, like a ship without a rudder. Now, with the book in hand, he felt he could regain control, not of the clock, but of the purpose behind every minute. He sat at the desk. He opened the notebook to write a new phrase. This time, before doing so, he closed his eyes and let his breath find a serene rhythm. He understood that his transformation would not be a momentary emotional act, but daily work, a spiritual discipline capable of guiding his life. He wrote slowly, "Day 3, I will prioritize the eternal over the urgent." The camera slowly zooms in on the written phrase. Arthur repeats those words in a low voice, like a silent prayer. He recognizes that many of his decisions were guided by superficial urgencies, ignoring spiritual priorities that give meaning to existence. He remembered a phrase from his grandmother, "He who invests his time in the eternal never loses it." Now he understood the depth of that advice. Arthur left the pen on the table and imagined what it would be like to dedicate a few minutes each day to reading a reflection, meditating on a divine word, and noting a concrete action. He visualized a practical path to cultivate wisdom through daily, structured, accessible steps designed to slowly transform the heart and mind. As that image grew in his mind, Arthur felt something more, a silent invitation to share that path with others, as if divine wisdom wanted to extend beyond his story and reach other hearts that also carry the wounds of lost time. The camera slowly moves around the table. Arthur carefully closes the book and places his hand on the cover as a gesture of commitment. The dawn light enters through the window, illuminating the ancient object, revealing its purpose. The invisible clock chimed again, but this time Arthur felt no fear or anguish. He felt direction. Each chime was a reminder that time lived with purpose has eternal weight. He breathed deeply. He knew he had to continue this discipline every day, that every morning would be part of a spiritual path, guided by reflection, word, and action. And he intuited that, with this daily practice, time would begin to take another form, not as an enemy that flees, but as a spiritual ally. The wise in heart will be called discerning, and pleasant words promote instruction. Proverbs 16:21. Arturo remained seated at his desk as the morning progressed. Despite the accumulated fatigue from so many sleepless nights, he felt a new energy, as if clarity was beginning to break through the emotional debris he had avoided for years. He looked at the notebook and reread the written phrases. Day 1, awaken with wisdom. Day 2, listen before acting. Day 3, prioritize the eternal over the urgent. 3 lines barely visible on a white page. Yet for Arturo, they represented a new direction. He remembered how many times he promised to change and postponed the decision. But this morning was different. It wasn't about momentary emotion, but conviction. Conviction is born when truth strikes not the mind, but the heart. He got up to pour himself a glass of water. As he walked, the invisible clock chimed again, this time slower, marking a different rhythm, as if accompanying the awakening of a spiritual consciousness. Arturo felt that time had not been his enemy, but his teacher, a severe but just teacher. He returned to the desk and opened the book again. He found another underlined verse. The heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. Proverbs 16:9. Arturo leaned the book against his chest and closed his eyes. He understood that for decades he had built goals based only on ambition. Now he wished to build a life founded on wisdom, purpose, and presence. He reflected on how many future decisions could change if each day began with a divine word and practical guidance. He imagined his routine transformed, waking up, opening a book with guided reflections, meditating in silence, writing a daily decision, and going out into the world with a heart conscious of the time he possessed. Just a few minutes at dawn could change his destiny. He thought of his son. He thought of how much harm he had caused by prioritizing business. He heard again in his mind the voice he attended to that dawn. There was pain, but also a half-open door. That hope stirred something deep within him. He picked up the phone one more time, dialed the number, but hung up before it rang. Not because he was afraid, but because he understood that he first needed to order his heart, to build an inner foundation before rebuilding external bridges. He knew he would need daily guidance to sustain that transformation, something to accompany, inspire, and direct his steps. He approached the window. Light flooded the room. He looked at the real clock on the wall. Every minute advanced irreversibly, but now those minutes had meaning. Arturo felt that time was becoming an ally that invited him to live with intention. He returned to the notebook and wrote a new phrase, Day 4, I will make decisions aligned with purpose. As the ink dried, Arturo smiled for the first time in a long time. Not because everything was resolved, but because he knew he was walking in a different direction. Just one daily decision can transform a life. A seed sown with intention can bear fruit forever. That thought awakened a powerful intuition. Perhaps others also needed such a simple and profound path to build their days with wisdom. Spiritual accompaniment to walk step by step, day after day, reconnecting with purpose, time, and faith. The invisible clock fell silent. Arturo felt peace. Because time is honored when one lives one day at a time, guided by wisdom. The wise fear evil and shun it, but the fool is arrogant and careless. Proverbs 14:16. The morning had advanced. Sunbeams pierced through the curtains, tracing golden lines on the floor. Arturo remained seated in silence, holding the ancient book in his hands. It was as if the entire house had adopted a new rhythm, slower, more conscious. He stood up and began to walk, mentally reviewing passages from his life. He recalled professional promotions, business awards, millionaire contract celebrations. But now those memories brought him not pride, but emptiness. All those achievements seemed to have been accumulated on unstable ground, built without wisdom or purpose. The camera follows Arturo as he opens his notebook again. He observes the written phrases and breathes deeply. He knows that lost time will not return, but he understands that each day can be an opportunity to rewrite his destiny. Daily discipline is key, a constant reminder that every decision counts and that every minute can be lived with intention. Arturo sat in front of the computer and opened his email. He found unanswered messages, pending agreements, scheduled meetings. Before, he would have felt rushed to resolve everything urgent, but that morning, he decided to prioritize what was important. He closed the email without replying to anything. The inner silence was liberating. He observed a photo of his family hanging on the wall. There were his wife and young son. Arturo slowly approached, delicately touched the frame, and allowed a tear to roll down his cheek. For an instant, guilt threatened to overcome him, but Arturo decided to use that emotion as fuel for an authentic transformation. Looking back at the notebook, he found a small folded paper inside. He opened it with curiosity. It was a message written by his grandmother in shaky but firm handwriting. Son, each day is a seed. If you sow it with wisdom, you will reap peace. Arturo closed his eyes. That phrase resonated deeply. He understood that wisdom is not abstract knowledge, but a daily practice. It requires discipline, presence, and constant guidance, especially in a world dominated by haste. The camera shows a close-up of his hands, trembling slightly, not from fear, but from a sense of reverence for the possibility of starting anew. Arturo slowly wrote in the notebook, "Day 5, I will sow wisdom in my decisions." As he wrote, he imagined a spiritual path that invited him to wake up each day, read a reflection, meditate for a few minutes, and practice an action of purpose. A guide designed to sustain inner transformation day after day, preventing the initial impulse from dissolving over time. He remembered people he had met throughout his life, rich, powerful men with busy schedules but empty hearts. He understood that a man's destiny is not defined by his wealth, but by the wisdom with which he manages his time and his decisions. He approached the window again and observed the waking city. Thousands of people rushing to places, commitments, automatic routines. Arturo felt a deep desire to warn them, to tell them that time is a treasure that should not be wasted on meaningless urgencies. The invisible clock chimed again. This time it was not a warning, but a gentle reminder. Life is not bought, it is honored with daily decisions. Arturo breathed deeply and closed the book firmly. He knew that this was just the beginning of a spiritual path that could transform not only his life, but that of anyone willing to awaken. Wisdom rests in the heart of the discerning, but it is not known in the breast of fools. Proverbs 14:33. Arturo closed the book and took a deep breath. The house was illuminated by a warm, almost symbolic light. Everything seemed different. It wasn't the house that had changed, but his perception. Sometimes when the heart awakens, the entire reality reorganizes itself. He stood up and walked to the kitchen. He made another coffee, not out of habit, but because he wished to savor every conscious minute. As he waited, he watched the steam rise and dissipate. He thought about how, for years, he had allowed his life to evaporate without realizing it. He took his cup and returned to the living room. The invisible clock marked a gentle rhythm. Arturo listened attentively, not as a reminder of mortality, but as an invitation to live with purpose. If each day began with wisdom, time would cease to be an enemy and become a teacher, an ally, and a guide. He sat by the window. The streets began to fill with cars, hurried people, accelerated lives. Arturo remembered when he himself used to rush without stopping to think. Now he understood the importance of silence, pause, and reflection. He looked at the notebook and thought that he would soon need new phrases for each day. He didn't want to improvise. He knew that the spiritual path needed to be guided, profound, structured, designed to sustain transformation even when emotions fluctuated. He recalled his grandmother's words, "Without guidance, the heart scatters." He now understood that daily guidance not only illuminates the path, but also sustains intention, preventing time from slipping away again. Arturo opened the notebook and slowly wrote, "Day 6, I will honor my time with awareness." As he wrote those words, something inside him began to align. He understood that honoring time didn't mean living faster, but living more present. Every decision, every conversation, every thought could be a spiritual investment. Tears began to blur his vision. They were not tears of sadness, but of reconciliation. Arturo felt a deep desire to share this silent transformation with those he loved. He thought of his son again, this time not as an emotional burden, but as part of his purpose. He picked up the phone with trembling hands and without hesitation dialed the number. "Hello, son," he said softly. There was a brief silence. "Are you okay, Dad?" the young man replied. "Yes," Arturo whispered. "I'm learning to live one day at a time." His son remained silent. He didn't know what to say. Arturo didn't expect answers. He just needed to speak from the heart. They said goodbye with an implicit promise to rebuild their relationship day by day with presence and wisdom. Arturo hung up and looked at the book again. He understood that time is not a currency to spend, but an opportunity to sow. A journey guided by wisdom could sustain that process of transformation. The invisible clock chimed one last soft bell. Arturo smiled. For the first time in decades, he felt that his soul had direction. The wise hear and increase knowledge, and the discerning acquire counsel. Proverbs 1:5, the sun was high, the morning was alive. Arturo slowly got up, breathed the warm air entering through the window, and felt that for the first time in many years, he had clarity. Not about the future, but about the present. He understood that wisdom does not consist in controlling tomorrow, but in honoring today. He walked to the table where he had left the old book and notebook. Both seemed to glow under the golden light, like silent symbols of a new beginning. The entire house seemed to accompany this atmosphere of inner rebirth. Arturo opened the notebook again. He read the phrases he had written. Day 1, awakening with wisdom. Day 2, listening before acting. Day 3, prioritizing the eternal over the urgent. Day 4, making decisions aligned with purpose. Day 5, sowing wisdom in my decisions. Day 6, honoring time with awareness. 6 days, 6 seeds. 6 silent steps that were already transforming his perception of time. Arturo understood something profound. Wisdom produces fruit when practiced daily, not just when known. He looked one last time at his son's photo. He smiled serenely. He knew that reconstruction would not be immediate, but now he had a direction. And a direction changes destinies. He sat by the window and let the morning light bathe his face. The invisible clock no longer chimed. Or perhaps Arturo no longer needed to hear it to remember that time is honored with wise decisions. He closed his eyes and visualized his future path. Each day would begin with a guided reflection, a divine word, a practical action to cultivate wisdom in his life. He understood that just as economic wealth is built with constant investment, spiritual wealth is built with daily discipline. He opened the book and a page gently fell to the floor. Arturo bent down to pick it up. It was a loose, yellowed sheet with a phrase handwritten by his grandmother. The truly wise do not wait longer. Begin today. Arturo felt a chill. That message was a confirmation. He looked at the notebook, the book, the dawn. It was time to truly begin the journey. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now. He stood up, breathed deeply, and in a low but firm voice said, "One day at a time." Because a life of wisdom is not built in great leaps, but in small, constant steps, guided with purpose. The camera slowly pulls away, showing the house bathed in light. Silence is an invitation. A call to whoever hears this story now, reminding them that every day is a unique opportunity to sow wisdom, transform decisions, rebuild relationships, and honor the time they have left. And for those who feel that call and wish to begin a daily guided, practical, and profound journey with reflections, actions, and teachings to live each day with spiritual intention, there is a written path to accompany that awakening. A silent, intimate path designed to walk 365 days with wisdom, one day at a time. The decision begins with one step. The journey begins today. The path is now available for those who wish to start. The link to the book is here. If this story resonated with you, share, comment a reflection, save this message, and allow others to awaken too.